sometimes we put faith in people that don't deserve it because they were actually acting with ill intent, but we were being blinded. Again, we're not trying to turn off our ability to observe, because that's not healthy. If this person said these things that go against the values I have, the things on my list, why the hell am I still giving them a chance?
I just want my kids to grow up cared for and exposed to a variety of opinions and cultures and experiences. Because I think one of my greatest weaknesses is that I really see things from I can empathize with people, like understand why they feel how they feel or understand their feelings, but I have a really hard time accepting someone else's perspective as a truth. Like this concept that we all have our own truth. I have a really hard time accepting someone else's perspective as truth. Like in my head, my perspective is truth, especially because I trust myself. I know I'm an honest, trustworthy, high integrity person. And I don't necessarily know that about people around me. So sometimes in situations, I only see it my way, and I only want to see it my way. Like I really trying to see someone else's way will make me very, very uncomfortable.
Okay.
So I would say that's a personal development goal that I have for myself.
Beautiful.
Is being more flexible and open-minded in that way, where I can accept someone else's perspective as a version of truth.
Yes. Oh, I know I've made several videos on that because it's so important. It's so important. I talk so much about us not leading with all these assumptions because it really, really hurts us in the big picture, because we're not asking enough. We're not asking enough important questions, particularly when you're talking about somebody else, right? It's different if we're talking about like a subject, something that's a little more objective, like a news story or a policy or a law, right? We can more objectively look at that and formulate an opinion and then talk about that, right? When you're talking about something personal, something that relates to that person, well, my bias tells me she'll be presented like this, so then I'm going to typecast her in this particular way, right? But that's my bias telling me that. I always say, this is my opinion, you may not agree, but this is my opinion, that I must always consider that I could be wrong about the way that I'm perceiving things. Why? Because I am not Shelby. I am not in her head, and I am not in her heart. So how dare I assume that I know what she thinks or how she feels? If I want to know, I must ask. And when she tells me what she thinks and what she feels, even if I disagree, even if I think there might be some shadiness to it, I need to accept it unless I've been proven otherwise at a later time, right? Because we want to give people the opportunity to be believed first in terms of when they're referring about themselves. If you ask them something like I've been asking you, obviously tons of questions today, it would be sort of counterintuitive to invalidate everything you said like at the end of this conversation. I know she said this, she lived like that, but what does she know? Like, how could I even be arrogant enough to think that, you know? Like, I'm not you. And if you tried to do that to me, I would say the same thing. I want us to be more curious and less sure, less judgmental, because we really don't know half of what we think we know about each other. Now, there can be some generalizations that I think are appropriate based on what you see, based on what the person actually tells you, right? Not that you made up in your head before they even sat down or before they actually spoke, based on what they've actually shared. But I found that we're not necessarily giving each other the space to do that. We're just sort of like, it presented like this, so then I think it was this, and then I go down the chain myself. So I'm gonna feel like this, I'm gonna behave like this, end of story. And I didn't really give that person a fair chance to present who they are. I just feel that that's very counterproductive. And I hope that as a people, as a society, that we can do a better job of that. Because if we don't change that, it's going to continue to have, I think we will continue to have this very tense, hostile relationship with each other that we see, where people really don't listen anymore. We just make all these grand assumptions about each other, and we say, I don't want to deal with people like that. Whatever the hell that means. I don't want to deal with people like that. So you stay over there, I'll stay over here. I'm going to be in my echo chamber, you be in yours. I really, really disagree. I can sit across from somebody who firmly disagrees with me and I will still be fine because I still want to understand why you see things the way that you do. You have a right to see it the way that you do. You could be wrong. I could be wrong. Especially if you're talking about somebody else. Again, if it's objective, if it's something tangible that has nothing to do with people, then that's different, right? You can look at it and you're not going to have all this personal bias as much attached to it. Not that it doesn't exist. It's not going to be as strong. When we're talking about people specifically, this is where I think where we get it confused, because we just do so many leaps and bounds with all these thoughts we tell ourselves. And I think it just sets us up to be disappointed and ultimately alone. If we don't figure that out, nobody's going to tolerate. Like nobody who has their stuff together is going to tolerate that from us if that's the way we choose to behave. So I hope that, like you said, that I think is a beautiful goal to work on. And we all have to keep working on it. You don't master it fully. You keep working on being open-minded and accepting that people have different viewpoints than us. And that might not necessarily make them a bad person. We just might have some differing viewpoints, and that can be okay. I think we got to move away from this way of thinking that we must all be in alignment, lockstep with everything. If you deviate at all, you're a terrible human being. Yeah. You should just go away from me. You know, like I think we need to move away from that type of thinking. I think it's being quite polarizing and pretty dangerous, if I must say. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many. I know we're like wrapping up. I have so many thoughts based on what you said, especially around just like why it's a challenge for me. I feel like in my case, it's a challenge because not trusting my intuition has gotten me into trouble many times. There have been times when I have been right about something or someone, and instead I've given them the benefit of the doubt, and it has resulted in serious consequences for me. So I'm curious about if you have thoughts or advice on how you kind of walk that line of, you know, being open-minded and still being open and trusting, but also protecting yourself when people aren't being honest, or because sometimes you will have a conversation with someone and they, you know, some people will just lie. There's liars.
For sure.
And so,
no doubt.
So instead of continuing to share my thoughts, I'm curious about what you would say in terms of like, you know, how do we walk that line? How do we trust people and keep ourselves safe at the same time?
No, for sure. I mean, and I think it's a very important question. I would say to me, I think a lot about that list that we talked about earlier, what's important to me and what I value. So I need to know that, again, like let's say I have a list of 10 items and 4 of them are my deal breakers. 4 of them are the things I'm unwilling to be flexible on. So those 4 are the first things I'm looking for in a person. And if they are met so far, you know, as we continue to interact, like we're fine there. Now, to go back to the point we were talking about earlier, not living in fear. There's a difference between being concerned, so that way I know that I'm with the type of person that genuinely has good intention, and more importantly, not only are they verbalizing it to me, but they're also demonstrating it through their actions, and me being afraid that everybody might deceive me, so I need to always be on guard. I want to draw a firm distinction there, because one is predicated on the idea that I only know as much as this person is going to share with me, which is true. That's everybody. But this other scenario is predicated on the idea that I've already sort of set the tone that I will be deceived. I'm just sort of waiting for when. So I want to draw a firm line in the sand there. This type of thinking, I think, is particularly destructive because it doesn't allow us to truly and authentically engage with somebody, because I'm sort of assuming at the end of the day, again, going back to the assumption, that they're going to screw me. If I'm going into a situation, just to make it very clear for anybody who's thinking about this, if I'm going into any situation, it could be a romantic relationship, a job opportunity, whatever. If the feeling I have is I'm waiting for something bad to happen, don't do it. If that's the way you look at it, don't do it. Because you're like you said, your intuition is telling you something's wrong. Dive a little deeper and figure out why I feel the way that I do. Now, going back to the other example, if I also still don't know all the information, I only know based on what I'm being perceived. Why am I going to give this person the benefit of the doubt? Why am I going to try to act in good faith? Well, number one, this is my belief. You give what you want to get. I want trust from you. So I'm going to give you trust. Now, when I say trust, that does not mean that I turn off logic. That doesn't mean I don't look at evidence. That doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. That's blind trust. Nobody said that. I'm not over here like, okay, I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. Everything is fine. Only what she tells me. And no, we have brains, right? So when I say trust, and I like to define these words so we're always on the same page, I'm still paying attention. I'm listening to what you said. I'm paying attention to what you show me. That's what's informing my opinion and my perception of you, right? In totality. And at the more time I spend with you, the more that I'm going to learn and I'm going to understand that. But other than that, I have to give you that opportunity because I am asking for the same in return. You wouldn't want to be looking at me or me looking at you thinking, man, I'm waiting that she's going to pull the rug out from underneath me and she's going to deceive me, right? Because you said earlier, what? I'm a genuine person. I give so much of myself when I'm in a relationship, right? That's what you said. I would say, hey, I want to receive that from you. So I need to make sure I'm mirroring that back as well. But you're looking all these observations about the things I'm saying and what I'm doing. You're formulating and putting all that together to draw conclusions, not assumptions, to draw conclusions based on what I see and I hear in real time. And we continue to communicate. That whole situation I just painted over here is way different than the situation I talked about over here, where I'm saying, I'm afraid, I'm basically certain that you're going to do something to hurt me. That's a completely different situation. This is assuring that it's going to fail. This one, I'm waiting to see based on what you show me. They're not the same. You follow what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, that is the reason why it matters how you go into any type of relationship with anybody. Again, it could be a job you want to take. If you got these gut feelings and you don't address them, it's probably not a good idea to then move forward because maybe you are screwing yourself. Sometimes we we put faith in people that don't deserve it because they were actually acting with ill intent, but we were being blinded. Again, we're not trying to turn off our ability to observe because that's not healthy. If this person said these things that go against the values I have, the things on my list, why the hell am I still giving them a chance?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. That is me acting in bad faith to myself.
Mm-hmm.
That essentially sets me up to have the other scenario. Yeah, I don't want it to fail, but man, I sure can't pick them, can I?
Yeah.
I put myself in a no-win scenario. I'm not going to advocate for that at all. I want us to put ourselves with genuine people who genuinely want to be there and utilize all of their observations of the way that they behave with you and what they say, because the two go together. Because like you said, people can lie. Actions, we tend not to. Over time, you'll start to show who you really are if you're really not about it. But I put all that together. And then I make the determination, am I going to continue engaging with this person or not? Are we going to elevate this to a higher level of relationship or not? That is the big difference compared to just kind of giving everybody a chance, but then thinking that I need to still be guarded the whole time. Because then that basically means I'm never going to win. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the point about behavior is really pertinent too. And probably my biggest struggle is I have ignored people's behaviors before because I like the words, I like what they say, I like the way it sounds, I like the way that makes me feel, and so I deceive myself.
Okay.
I can't say enough how much you just talking about, self-deception resonated with me because I've definitely found myself lots of times in my life where I have known better and not done better because I've chosen to deceive myself instead. And I will say too, when something I use that helps me a lot with being able to accept different truths is my little sister. I trust her a lot. I know she has my best intentions at heart. She, I think besides my parents, she loves me more than anyone else in the world. And so I will bounce stuff off of her.
Yeah.
And when she disagrees with me, I'm willing to consider it because I trust and respect her so much. So
There
I
you
feel
go.
like having a person like that in your life too, who you can trust to be honest with you when they disagree, and you can trust that it's coming from a genuine place. Like, she's not disagreeing with me because she wants me to get bad advice and then fail. Um,
Right. Right.
Disagree. She actually really disagrees. So that's helpful too. But I would say it's definitely something like what we're discussing right now
Hmm.
is probably my number one struggle in life at the moment. Just constantly like, am I right? Are they right? Am I the asshole? Are they the asshole? Like, I'm definitely always trying to figure out like who,
I hear
what's
you.
going on in this scenario. So hearing your perspective, being reminded of the list, and to measure people against the list, and also pay close attention to their behaviors and do they align
Yeah.
with words, like that's really the key, and not something I've always been the best at. I've definitely chosen to just kind of ignore behavior and focus on the word. I'm a words of affirmation person too,
Well,
so
okay.
you know
Beautiful. Then that
it's
then, no
easy
no
for me
no
to
no
get distracted by things that sound good.
exactly. No, it's so good that you said that though. I appreciate that. That's good self-awareness, right? For those that didn't catch that, she said words of affirmation are basically her love language. So that means that if somebody says certain things to you, it's gonna impact you greater than probably would me. See, I'm a quality time, physical touch type of person. But more importantly than that, I'm an actions driven person. I've had to learn to be more expressive verbally in terms of how you feel about a person. Um, because of the way that I grew up. I feel like I grew up with a hypocritical father. So I didn't really trust words. I only trust what people do. And I've had to learn to balance that a little because women tend to like what they want to hear your feelings and hear you express it to them. And so it's interesting, but it's important to balance the two. But I think the behaviors to me, it weighs more to me specifically because it's harder to fake that for an extended period of time. Like words, I feel like you can more or less effortlessly deceive yourself or deceive somebody else. But your actions, it takes a lot more effort to put up this facade and maintain it if you really are not about it. Like if you say you like somebody, but then your actions start to, they start out high and they sort of go down over time. That's more, I would say that's more expected when you have somebody who's not genuinely interested. But with words, it's easier to keep it static. It doesn't take as much effort. So I do value both. I do think it's important to do both. But the behavior and the action side, I think it's harder to keep that up for a long time. And so if somebody's really not serious about what they're saying or about what you both are looking for, then you can more quickly make that decision and then move on before you get more significantly emotionally invested.